Good morning. It's February 14th, and this is to my liberal friends. If you listen to Joe Biden and his administration officials like Secretary Granholm and Secretary Buttigieg, you would believe that everyone should be buying an electric car. They've made promises about a nationwide charging system. There have been reports they have offered Tesla a huge sum of money if they would open their system to all electric vehicles no matter the manufacturer. We've all seen Biden driving around in various electrical vehicles, touting them as the future and encouraging us all to buy an EV at the earliest convenience. Of course, they don't talk about the cost of those vehicles and how lower income people and even middle class people can afford the higher cost cars and trucks. They also do not talk about what to do with the batteries of these vehicles when their lifespan has been consumed and we have to dispose of them. I guarantee you that's going to become a major environmental issue in the future. Remember we had the controversy over at the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository? Then Senator Harry Reid was actively trying to block this site's use for nuclear waste. According to the state of Nevada, the Yucca Mountain site was singularly bad for several reasons, including geology and location. But that would be code words to put this waste elsewhere, just not in our state. But before you run out and buy the electric vehicle, you should pay some attention to a new report from the University of California, Davis. The report is called the Climate and Community Project. The report offers an honest look, in their opinion, at the vast personal, environmental, and economic sacrifices needed to meet the left's net zero climate goals. Progressives' dirty little secret is that everyone will have to make do with much less: fewer cars, smaller houses and yards, and a significantly lower standard of living. With respect to electric cars, they start to address the two major long-term problems with those vehicles. Electric vehicle batteries require loads of minerals such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel, which must be extracted from the ground like fossil fuels. Quoting from their report, if today's demand for EVs is projected to 2050, the lithium requirements of the US EV market alone would require triple the amount of lithium currently produced in the entire global market. End quote. Unlike fossil fuels, these minerals are mostly found in undeveloped areas and have abundant natural fauna and often inhabited by indigenous people. Quote, large-scale mining entails social and environmental harm, in many cases irreversibly damaging landscapes without the consent of affected communities, end quote. Mining can be done safely, but in poor countries they don't think it is, and often won't be. Next, the report talks about the problems created by the mining of these minerals. Mining requires huge amounts of energy and water, and the process of refining minerals requires even more. According to their report, mining accounts for 4 to 7% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Automakers have made a priority of manufacturing electric vehicle pickup trucks and SUVs because drivers like them, and they require much bigger batteries and more minerals. The report makes it clear that more EVs will increase CO2 emissions and could destroy forests and deserts that currently reduce the CO2 in the atmosphere. All of these conclusions are counter to what the president is urging people to do and what those on the political left in Washington have supported. But the report then goes to the ugly underbelly of what these alarmists on the left are really trying to push us for in the future. The report concludes that the auto sector's current dominant strategy, end quote, which involves replacing gas-powered vehicles with EVs without decreasing car ownership and use, is likely incompatible with climate activists' goal to keep the planet from warming by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius compared with the pre-industrial times. Instead, the report recommends government policies that promote walking, cycling, and mass transit. You need to read that part very carefully. This report is telling us that we should abandon our cars and start walking and riding bikes. So what about those of us that live in suburban areas and need our cars to commute to and from work or to go to the stores? Well, they got a solution for that. Quit building single-family houses and start building high-density urban housing where people can walk or bike to work. Basically, you have to give up your house and move to a small apartment. Now, some of you might say this is just some fringe left group pushing an idea that is not reasonable and not being adopted. But you could be wrong. A Natural Resources Defense Council, which is a major group in D.C., report last year on lithium mining also concluded that the government needs to, quote, reduce long-term dependency on single-passenger vehicles, end quote. The Inflation Reduction Act included billions of dollars to promote bicycling in so-called livable neighborhoods. Read that high-rise. California's Democratic legislature last year even passed a bill creating a $1,000 tax credit. It was originally going to be $7,500 for households that don't own cars. In the State of the Union, Biden said we would need fossil fuels for another decade. That would be news to the real experts that say we would have to have a major breakthrough in renewable technology or we'll be using fossil fuels for another 5 decades. But the far left lives in this dream world where everyone will quit driving a car, nobody will travel by plane, and we will live in what will become known as American ghetto buildings. Farmers will simply have to stay put on the farm and hope there is diesel fuel for their equipment and trucks to move their product. Or we will all have to build little small gardens like these apartment buildings, sort of like the Victory Gardens of World War II. Finally, I support continued research into renewable energy. I'm building a new home and I will more than likely put solar on the roof. I live in the desert with a lot of sun, so it makes sense. But to stick your head in the sand and pretend that we can abandon oil and gas at this juncture in time is just foolish. But that never stopped those on the left from demanding that we all become as foolish as they are. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, hit the subscribe button. Thank you.